Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
Despite some efforting, as they always would and are wont to do, making calls to potentially be active and move up, the Saints did, in fact, stay at 14, and it sounded like this.
With the 14th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Taliese Fuaga, tackle, Oregon State.
That's how it sounded when the Saints got their offensive lineman. Look, the one thing that we talked about was in drafts you have wants, needs, musts. For the New Orleans Saints, whatever is a 10X on top of a must, that is what offensive line is and was for the Saints in round one and in this draft. They did exactly what they had to do, which was take an offensive lineman. Don't overthink it. If you had an opportunity to go up, and I've seen the reports and some of the rumors about were they going up to try to get Michael Penix or whatever the case may be, it would have certainly been tempting, because when you're picking at 14, there had not yet been a single defensive player off the board. The first defensive player didn't come off the board until one pick after the Saints at 15 with the Indianapolis Colts picking Latu, the defensive end out of UCLA. You would have had your pick of any defensive player in the draft. There's so much you could have done, but the Saints did the prudent thing, the absolute right thing, which was take the best available offensive lineman, and that's what they got at 14 with Taliese Fuaga. Dennis Allen, after the pick, talked about why they liked the big offensive lineman out of Oregon State.
Really excited about Taliese. I think he's big, he's athletic, he's extremely physical. I think he's a culture builder type personality, and obviously we liked what we saw on the tape, and then we sat down and had an interview with him at the Combine and really fell in love with him because we just felt like he was our type of person.
Now, one thing that in drafting Taliese Fuaga does is, from a Saints perspective, it does essentially confirm what we already knew, and that's the dramatic uncertainty about Ryan Ramczyk's future. Because what you have here in Taliese Fuaga is a guy that, if Ryan Ramczyk is in fact done, is your day one starter at right tackle, like week one this season for the New Orleans Saints. The really good news, though, and I want to go through some of these scenarios as they could play out for New Orleans on the offensive line, because now that you have this piece, and we knew that we're going to go offensive line, and listen, I said it so many times throughout the past several months, I wanted Olu Fashanu from Penn State. I thought he was a plug-and-play left tackle, franchise left tackle. The Jets took him at 11. Not surprised they did that, although they could have jetsed the draft and done something completely different. But they took Olu Fashanu, great player. And so for the Saints, while I was bummed at the time that you didn't get the guy that I was hoping they'd get, they did the right thing now. What Dennis Allen also talked about is the fact that they believe that Fuaga, even though, look, in his career, Fuaga, who's massive, by the way, 6'6", 324, played in 39 games during his career at Oregon State, started 25 times, all 25 starts at right tackle. But DA says they believe that he can play on either side of the line.
Look, he's an offensive tackle. I know he can play right. I feel very confident that he can go over and play on the left-hand side. I don't think that's a decision that we have to make right now. I think we see how the rest of the draft plays out. I think we see how, there's always a little bit of a free agent period, after the draft where some guys become available. So I think we know he's going to play offensive tackle, and I feel like he's going to be a pretty good one for us.
So that's a really important distinction, because DA is telling you he's going to play offensive tackle, right? Because the thought is, in some respect, what if Ryan Ramczyk were healthy? And we're going to go through these scenarios in just a second, but what if Ramczyk were healthy and plays right tackle? Then Fuaga's, if he's a tackle, then he's your left tackle next year. So it doesn't sound like there's the idea of him playing left guard if Ramczyk is available. We'll get to the scenarios again in just a quick second. But real quick, here was Fuaga when he was asked point blank, like, can you play left tackle at this level? Here's what he said with the New Orleans media on Thursday night.
I feel pretty comfortable. Obviously, I only play right tackle with light reps at Oregon State, but, with Coach Malchek, he tries to move us around, guard. Left tackle was like, I didn't play too much of it, but, I still feel comfortable because, working off season, I've been working a lot of left tackle reps, so I feel pretty comfortable like everywhere on the line.
Look, it's not an easy thing to do if you're a right tackle to flip over and play left, but you hear he's saying, look, he's taking reps at it. You see to what degree you can become competent at it. But listen, when you're a tackle and you can play tackle, in some respects, that makes sense. We saw Andres Pete, who was a left tackle at Stanford. They brought him in to be a right tackle. He struggled there, became a left guard, but as a more veteran player, got reps at left tackle when you had injuries. We saw James Hurst, who's played left tackle with the Ravens, but later in his career was a guard and even at times kicked out and played tackle for the Saints. So in some respect, I do understand what DA is saying, that if you're a tackle, you're a tackle, and you try to play on either side of the line. I'm not saying that that's an easy switch to make. But one more here on the idea of Fuaga potentially playing left tackle as well. Again, this is all the scenarios that could play out depending on Ryan Ramczyk's health. But Jim Nagy, of course, who's the executive director of the Senior Bowl, high-level scout, been in NFL front offices. Jim Nagy, who said, by the way, he believes that Fuaga is a day-one starter, future Pro Bowler, totally sold on him as a prospect. Here is Jim Nagy on why he believes that Taliese Fuaga can be a left tackle in the NFL.
Usually right tackles are a little more upright. They don't bend as well. Limited foot athletes, but stronger, powerful guys that get pushed in the run game. And that's not this guy. I mean, all you have to do is pull up some YouTube clips of this guy, and you can see him. You can see him in his stance. I mean, frankly, like you can see this guy in his stance and the power angles he comes off with, and then just the agility he comes off with at the second level and keeps a wide base, and he can recover. I mean, those are things a lot of right tackles can't do.
So you don't need me to tell you whether or not Taliese Fuaga can play left tackle, because I'm not a scout, I'm not a coach. But when you hear Jim Nagy, whose opinion I very much trust and respect, the Saints head coach Dennis Allen, when you hear Fuaga himself, when they all say, yeah, we try left tackle, okay. Like, I'm on board with saying that's at least an option. I'm not saying it's the primary option, because this guy started 25 games in college on the right side. That's probably where you plan to slot him if Ryan Ramczyk is in fact done. But that is at least an option. So when you play it out this way, if Ryan Ramczyk plays, let's say, if you explore that hypothetical, if Ramczyk does play, then right now you go into this offseason with McCoy as your center, Ruiz as your right guard, Ramczyk as your right tackle. Again, I don't know if this is possible with Ramczyk's injury, but just play it out. Then Fuaga becomes your left. Basically, Fuaga and Penning are on the left side of the line battling for jobs. Penning potentially, if he can win the left tackle job, or if not, maybe left guard. Then you've also got Nick Saldiveri as well. And remember, you signed Oli Udoh from Minnesota, who during his time with the Vikings started 18 games, primarily as a tackle, but did play some guard as well. So that's another experienced veteran guy who could play guard if you need another veteran player there. And as you heard Dennis Allen say, yes, like after the draft, there's going to be options in free agency. Potentially it's bringing back an Andres Pete, who knows your scheme, who knows your coaches, knows your organization, who can play guard and tackle for you. There are options. I mean, we've talked about David Bakhtiari, who's a former all-pro left tackle, he's had injuries, only 32 years old, but injuries have slowed his career. Could he be a one-year veteran piece, sort of stopgap until you figure out what your long-term solution is as some of these younger guys get older? Ultimately, what this pick did is it explores and expands so many options for you now on the offensive line, so knowing you have a solidified piece at one of those tackle spots for you going into this season. The other thing, if we play it, is if Ramczyk is not available, which I think we're probably all operating under that assumption that Ryan Ramczyk certainly wouldn't be available at the start of the season, if at all, this year. And as we've mentioned several times here, Nick Underhill of New Orleans Football was on Off the Bench a couple weeks ago, where his opinion is Ryan Ramczyk won't play again. It wasn't a report; it was just his opinion, sort of an educated opinion, but that he wouldn't play again. So if that's the case, McCoy, Ruiz, and then Fuaga as your right tackle. So then you got to figure out the left side of your line, and that's where a veteran like Oli Udoh could fit into one of those slots. Maybe you give Trevor Penning the opportunity to win your starting left tackle job. And then, as we mentioned, you got Nick Saldiveri as well, who you moved up into the beginning of round 4 a year ago to take him out of Old Dominion. He only played in 4 games last year, but that's a guy who may win your left guard spot, and then maybe Penning is your left tackle if he comes along, or maybe you have to go free agency. But ultimately what this pick does is it checks another box. Instead of saying today you only know you've got 2 starters in Ruiz and McCoy, now you know you've got 3, and you have the other options already, enough options already to figure out those other 2. So, listen, I wanted Olu Fashanu. We all knew it. He wasn't on the board. But if you gave me the option, would I have rather the Saints move up and be aggressive and give up other assets, or stay where they are and have the situation they're in, I think they did the exact right thing. So, Saints take Taliese Fuaga, 14th overall, out of Oregon State. They get a big piece, both literally and figuratively, on their offensive line.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.